Hi, welcome back to Let's Talk About It. So a few days ago I made a video about how this Russian-Ukraine conflict is hitting or will hit UK inflation, and I want to make a follow-up video to that, and this has really come about by a article in the Daily Telegraph by Liam Halligan, which points out some various aspects. Now, when Russia invaded Ukraine, there was a massive rush for Western nations in particular to impose sanctions on Russia, and I honestly believe they didn't think through the implications on the worldwide economy of those sanctions. I personally think they rushed into those sanctions, and although these sanctions will affect Russia quite significantly, they're also going to have a significant effect on the global economy. Now, sadly, these are going to hit some of the poorest people in the world the hardest. You know, for rich people, they're just going to kind of shrug them off. But for sort of poorer people, it could mean the difference between life and death. And I'm going to explain some of the effects on the global economy that these sanctions are going to have. Now, these sanctions and this invasion has come at a time where inflation in certainly the UK and the US is at like a 30-year high, and Liam believes the consequences of these sanctions that the West have applied are going to push inflation into double-digit territory. And as I'm recording this video, oil, for example, which is one of the most used commodities around the world, is trading at $128, and yesterday it hit over $135 a barrel. Now, this hasn't really been helped by some of the suggestions that have appeared in the press that Anthony Blinken of the USA is trying to organise an embargo on Russian oil. You know, all that's doing is adding to increasing the energy prices. You know, we could be seeing that sort of petrol prices in the UK hit £2 a litre if the price of oil remains high for any period of time. And it's not just energy for the consumer. I mean, already British consumers are facing record rises in energy, and the average household bill will be as much as £2,000 per year. These new sanctions could push UK household energy prices to an average of up to £3,000 a year, which is a significant increase. Now, it's not only energy, it's also foodstuffs and metals. So just to give you an idea, Russia and Ukraine between them supply about a third of the world's wheat and barley and about a fifth of the world's maize. And looking at the S&P Commodities Index, that is already up by 16% over the week. Wheat has almost doubled to over $13 a bushel from $7 not so long ago. So this is going to have a, you know, these ingredients are raw materials to a lot of food. And, you know, on top of that, these factories and companies that manufacture food also use a lot of energy. So they're going to be hit with higher energy costs, which the in the UK the Ofcom cap doesn't help with, and they're also going to be hit with much higher raw material costs. So obviously that cost is going to be passed on to UK consumers, and this is going to mean that prices of finished food goods, as well as many other goods, are going to rise. So another thing that will also feed into food price inflation is that Russia and Belarus combined supply about 2/5 of the world's potash, and potash is one of the main raw ingredients in fertilizer, and that's one of the reasons we're seeing huge spikes in prices of fertilizer on the world markets. And again, that will feed into food price inflation and cause even higher food prices. So I think a lot of the Western world are going to see some significant increases in food prices over the next 3, 6, 12 months. Russia are also main exporter of titanium, palladium, copper, nickel, which is used massively in the car industry as well as the manufacture of silicon chips. So again, there's big issues, and this is all because no Western companies want to deal with Russia at the moment because of the central bank sanctions. So if you look at like all the major shipping lines, we have Maersk, we have Ocean Network Express, MSC, Hapag-Lloyd and CMA. All of those have refused to handle containers and cargo either outbound or inbound to Russia because they're worried about getting hit by the US or the Western sanctions. The only operator are COSCO, who are a Chinese shipping line, and even they're not operating in and out of the Ukrainian ports on safety grounds. So I think this is something that I honestly don't think that the Western politicians took into account, just the effect it will have on the global market. And there are millions and millions of people in the developing world that literally are struggling day to day to purchase enough food to eat. So with these commodities soaring in price, it's going to make it even more difficult for them. So this is something that Western politicians will have on their hands, that they could push huge amounts of the undeveloped world deeper into poverty and possibly even famines. Now, let's talk about the possible gainers out of this situation. So I live in China, and I noticed that when the US imposed sanctions on Iranian oil, the purchase of Iranian oil by China increased significantly, and they were buying that at a discount to the world market rate. So it was very beneficial to China to do that. And I very much suspect the same thing will happen with Russian oil. I suspect that China will do deals with Russia to increase its quantity of oil it buys from Russia, and I also suspect that that will be at a similar discounted rate to world market prices. It's also interesting to note that China have just completed and signed a deal with Russia to build a gas pipeline, the Power of Siberia 2, to bring Russian gas directly to China. And I think other countries that will benefit from this are possibly India. I think India are also another country that have not imposed any sanctions on Russia, and they will also be keen to buy commodities from Russia at discounted prices. And if we note, Pakistan have just announced they've done a major deal with Russia to buy Russian wheat, and again that will probably be at a discounted price on the world market. So I think Russia will have no problem selling its commodities to other countries. You've got to remember that the Western nations who've imposed these sanctions only make up quite a small amount of the total world population. I want to finish up this video by saying that there's overwhelming support from the West for these financial sanctions on Russia. I see many people on social media cheering them on, and I just wonder whether those same people in those Western nations will be cheering these sanctions on when they are paying £2 a litre for their fuel, 15-20% higher for their food, and 30 or 40% higher for their energy. Now, there's been some talk over the weekend that one of the major Russian pipelines, the flow of gas, has been somewhat significantly reduced. Now, we're coming into spring and summer, so the effect won't be as much, but there's going to be major price increases of gas, simply because there's going to be many nations, Europe and the USA will be competing, especially Europe will be competing with each other to secure delivery of gas for next winter, and that's just going to push the price higher and higher. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I'd really like to know what you think. You've heard my opinions. I'd love to know what you think down in the comments. But as always, for now, take care.